What's up everybody, Sean here and thank you for joining me. Today we are going to look at the Orient World Map Diver. But before that, let's do a quick wristwatch check, and I am wearing the Hamilton Khaki Feel Automatic, and I really should get this review out soon. So like the weekly Auto Orient King Diver that I reviewed a while back, here we have another watch from Orient's Revival collection, the Orient World Map Diver. If you aren't aware, the Revival collection is Orient's 70th anniversary commemoration series, which pulls out some of the most iconic watches from the archives. These are reissues that are made as close as possible to the original, while they also produce several other variants featuring a modern take on the old design. This Orient World Map Diver is one such model that is truly quite unique in its design, as we shall see further in this review. For clarification, this is not a sponsored review, but this watch is a review unit that was kindly lent to me by Big Time Singapore, my local Orient AD, so big shout out to them. So this watch features a case size of 43.5mm, a lug-to-lug distance of 46mm thanks to the concealed lugs, a lug width of 20mm, and a thickness of 13.9mm. The case is made of stainless steel with a domed mineral glass, and we have a stainless steel screw case back. Inside this watch is the F6922 movement, which is an automatic movement that features hacking and hand winding. It has a power reserve of 40 hours and it beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. 22 jewels, a 200 meter water resistance, and a recommended retail price of 563 Singapore dollars. But you know that you get quite a good discount at most places. The original Orient World Map Diver was first introduced in 1969. This came at a time when Japan had only just recently lifted their heavy travel restrictions on their citizens. The watch featured a multicolored drawing of the world map on the dial with a 24-hour internal rotating bezel. The Revival series that this reissue is a part of comes in 4 different designs, one of which featuring the original multicolored artwork on the dial, with the other 3 recreating the world map in a more modern way. The other 3 variants come in a blue, green, and ivory dial. All models come in a stainless steel case, with the ivory model sporting a two-tone design by having a gold bezel and gold crowns. All 4 models come with decorated stainless steel bracelets to match the case. Today, I will be reviewing the two-tone ivory dial version. So while we do have a not very petite 43.5mm case diameter, do not let that size fool you. With the lugs being concealed beneath the case, the lug-to-lug distance comes in at a very palatable 46mm, which fits my 6.25-inch wrist very nicely. Quite similar in vein to the Seiko Tunas, which despite their large case size, still manages to fit smaller wrists very comfortably. Now this is not a modern tool watch by any means, given how the case is entirely mirror polished all around. While it does attract smudges and finger oils, for a review unit, it is surprisingly devoid of scratches. I will not be testing out its scratch resistance in any case. On top of the case, we have a fluted gold bezel in a mirror polish finish as well. A dome mineral crystal sits on top, giving it a very nice vintage style. At the side of the case is a 3 o'clock crown for winding the movement and setting the day, date, and time. True to the times of the original, this is not a screw-down crown. There is also a 4 o'clock crown that controls the internal rotating 24-hour bezel. Both crowns are signed and are also in gold and mirror polished, matching the fluted bezel. On the back, we have a simple screw case back with the standard Orient markings. Like the rest of the watch, it is also mirror polished. Unlike your typical lug design, this watch doesn't have any real lugs, as the spring bar is tucked underneath the case itself. While it does greatly help the wearability, it also means that there isn't much space for thicker straps. I don't think this is a big issue, as the included bracelet is pretty nice itself, as we shall see later in this review. The dial is where things get really interesting. Like the name suggests, the face is literally an illustration of the world map. Unlike the model that pays homage to the original, the dial on this watch features a more modern take on the world map, using thin lines on an ivory canvas instead of multicolored sections on a sea blue backdrop. With the world map face being the signature feature of this watch, very little has been added to the dial, likely in an attempt to keep the world map visible and unobstructed. The reason for this is surprisingly more than just aesthetics, as there is an actual function to it, which I shall explain in a bit. There are no numerals apart from the date wheel, as the hours are denoted by very tiny round gold markers. In keeping with the theme, the day date window is framed by a mirror polished gold bezel. We have gold hour, minute, and second hands that come in basically the same shape and length as the original. The minute and second hands extend nicely beyond the gold markers to reach the chapter ring that is printed around the edge of the dial. The remaining dial decorations are an applied Orient logo at the 12 o'clock with printed text saying automatic and at the bottom indicating a 20 bar water resistance. The bezel is an internal one that is controlled by the 4 o'clock crown. As the idea behind this watch was to promote world travel, the bezel is designed to help you quickly reference the different time zones. I originally thought that this is a GMT style bezel until I got stuck trying to figure out how do you actually use a 24-hour bezel on a 12-hour dial. When I asked Big Time about it, their answer literally blew me away. So you see, this bezel is not actually meant to correspond to the hour markers on the dial, but rather the world map drawing on the dial itself. The map is actually divided up into 24 different sections which act as different time zones. So you basically set the bezel time to correspond to the time zone on the map that you know is correct, and it will show you what time it is in any other time zone on the map. Now, this does require a good knowledge of how to actually identify your location on this map, but I assume people were much more attuned to this sort of thing back in 1969, as opposed to today, where we just use Google Maps for everything. It is still a pretty interesting function to me that I've not seen in other watches elsewhere before. Let me know if you happen to know of any. Now, at first glance, it may seem like the only lume on this watch is found on the hour and minute hands. However, they have actually painted lume all around the bezel on all the hour markers, making this quite a well illuminated watch. Although not quite at the level of full-on dive watches, but still very respectable. Those of you who follow me would probably know by now how much I love modern Orient movements, and this one is no exception. Very affordable, made in-house, has hacking, hand winding, and self-winding, and is accurate to -15 to +25 seconds per day. These movements have proven to be very reliable and robust, and often run well within their stated accuracy, more often than not running fast rather than slow. While Orient aren't exactly known for providing the highest quality bracelets around, and neither should you really expect it at this price point, they do tend to make them pretty comfortable. The included bracelet is actually one of my favorite parts of this watch. It is well decorated to match the polishing on the case, with the side and middle links being very evenly straight brushed, and the inner two links being a mirror polish. The links used are solid and also of the shorter variety. This helps to make the bracelet very supple and comfortable and quite easy to get a good fit. I do, however, wish that there were more than just two micro adjust positions on the clasp. Like the links, the sign clasp is also of the shorter variety. The clasp is stamped instead of milled, but that really shouldn't be a surprise at this price point. The straight end links are a common 20mm width, but given the small amount of space created by the lack of actual lugs, you will be limited to using straps that are thin enough to fit in should you want to replace the stock bracelet. So my final thoughts on this watch. Before this review, I would never have expected this Orient to become one of the most interesting watches that I have ever handled. Apart from being surprisingly comfortable and wearable on a skinny wrist like mine, I really like how there was a story behind the introduction of the original watch that this one pays homage to. Also, the utilization of the actual map on the dial to reference the different time zones around the world totally caught me by surprise. While the style of this watch definitely isn't for everyone, if you are looking for an interesting and quirky watch with a story behind it, this is definitely one to consider taking a look at. And that wraps things up for this review. If you liked it and would like to see more like it, please consider giving me a like and subscribe below, and I will see you in the next one.